All right, welcome to the Underdog Ecom podcast, where two ecom brand founders are figuring out in real time.
Yeah, we're not here to preach. We're here in the thick of it, making mistakes, testing all sorts of ideas, and really sharing the journey of how we've been growing these brands from day zero. Hopefully you learn a little bit, perhaps come away with some ideas that save you time and money. And so if you're tired of the same glittery D2C advice from those 9-figure gurus, you're here in the right place.
Let's get into it.
Hello, we're back here, e-commerce Underdog podcast, and guess what, Jack? Something kind of crazy happened recently to me. One of those things that you fear might happen with this whole like AI doing everything everywhere, all over, all at once. To quote that cool movie that came out within the year or two. But basically, so I have an AI agent set up in my CommSlayer account. That's what I'm using for customer service. It's a great platform. And recently, I came across a situation where a wholesale buyer had reached out to my customer support line and had presumably set up a meeting with me to talk about wholesale and buy products. And guess what? That didn't actually get set up. I basically went back in and looked over some emails because they reached out independently of the customer service line. And the AI agent had acted like a friendly customer service representative with this person, confirmed the meeting time. So this person had reached out and said, hey, we want to talk about wholesale opportunities, that sort of thing, a buyer. And the agent responded, did a little back and forth. The person was like, great, let's set up a meeting. How's tomorrow? And the AI agent confirmed the meeting and everything, but didn't really tell anyone else about it. And I didn't find out about it until later. Who knows? Like, if that person hadn't reached out, I wouldn't have known about it for a long time. And this was like a month or so later after the AI agent conversation. And so, pro tip, make sure that you don't have any guidance enabled in your CommSlayer account that doesn't have any agent instructions in it, because that's what I figured out. It was user error. With all things AI, it does what you tell it to do. And in this case, I had some guidance enabled around, I think, partnerships or something. This was when I initially set up the account, so I must have enabled it and not gone back to update the agent instructions, but it was basically all blank. So the agent was just kind of assuming to be, I should be a nice, friendly kind of person and say yes and help this person sign up for a meeting. And so I've disabled that guidance that was empty, and I will work on filling it in with details.
It's funny because I haven't had that happen, but I've had similar things happen where I set up some guidance where it's actually worked really well, where a couple of times the customer said, oh, I forgot to add this to my order. And then the AI agent in CommSlayer just goes in, creates a draft order for them, sends them the link, and that guidance does that. And that's actually worked a couple of times, and I haven't even had to intervene. It's been really good. But the funny thing is that it's taken that guidance and applied it to anybody who is saying I received my order and it's missing something, or can you send me a replacement? We have these clips for our bags that attach on, and sometimes customers might lose them or something. So we say, can you send me some replacement? Normally we do that for free. We send out it's not. Well, I mean, if it's in the US anyway, send out for free, or just something. You have to send a replacement of something, and it creates a draft order at each time. It says, yes, I've just created it for you, but then it sends them the link to pay, right? Without explaining that they're under the assumption that it's free and that we've arranged the order from them. All it's done is created a random draft order and sent the link for payment, but it's told them it's gone ahead and created the order for them and it's ready to go. And I haven't figured out how to fix this yet, because it seems to be confusing itself with the adding to somebody's order an item, which is great, or editing an order, or sending a link for something, which is great to have, with somebody saying, I need a replacement X, or this was missing, in which case we just want to send it out to them. We don't want to send them a link to pay for it again. So yeah, I haven't figured that one out yet.
Tricky. One thing that might work in that situation is what I've been doing for really convoluted situations that are hard. It's AI is so great in a lot of ways, but you really have to dial it in and be super, super explicit. And that takes a lot of work. AI is not the set it and forget it kind of thing. And so for situations like that, because I have all these sort of super random things that are very brand specific like that, I go into Claude and I'm like, hey, look at this ticket and look at this guidance, like help me distill this information and make it more clear, and maybe we need to set up a new guidance. And that's actually been super helpful. Like once you connect CommSlayer to Claude, it can help dig through. And for a lot of those situations, I've said like, hey, explicitly like write out all of the instructions here, ask me any questions that might come up, but let's write out these instructions for the guidance. And that's been really having the AI train the AI is really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think you do have to keep these things up to date. That's kind of like the biggest thing, because if you have a product that's out of stock and the guidance is trained on that product being out of stock, it doesn't know it's back in stock. It just keeps telling everyone that product's out of stock regardless, or that it's coming back in a few weeks. You know, if we say, I've seen before again where we've had like a very popular product that was due to come back in March and it restocked. I forgot to update the guidance, so it was telling people in April that it was coming back in stock in March, and people like March 2027 or.
What do you mean here? Human,
Yeah.
human.
Yeah, exactly. But still, it is great. It is useful. I mean, it's useful. I'd say at the moment it's useful 6, 7 out of 10 times, which I think is pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm realizing that I don't do this enough. You have to review, like, going through the agent, like, what it's done in terms of context and conversations and what it's told people has to be. I'm trying to build this into my processes where it's like a weekly review, or, I don't remember to do it weekly, but it should be like a weekly review stage of customer service of that department, basically going in and checking it and making sure that the details provided are accurate and updating guidance and that sort of thing, because it is definitely like it will adhere to whatever you give it, and it is a large effort to keep all that stuff updated. That's one thing I want to be better about, basically. There's been
and speaking on customer oh, sorry, yeah,
go ahead.
sorry, a bit of a delay there. No, I was going to say, speaking on customer service, I think this is kind of a bit of a segue. Returns. I've mentioned this to you in the last episode, but I kind of got a bit of an update there, so I thought I'd mention it now. But so obviously everyone hates returns. Returns are horrible, and there's quite a few. At least there were quite a few apps like Recommerce apps and things like that, resale, and I feel like it's died down a little bit recently. I feel like these apps are very kind of like you go on the websites, they haven't been updated since like 2022, 2023, and they're expensive. They're expensive. They're like $100, $200, $300 a month.
At least.
And they also, and they force you to have like a separate store, separate management. And I understand the separate store part. Probably for a lot of brands, that's the best route. But I just, because I've got, 12, 13 SKUs, I created basically a version with the help of Claude. I mean, so I spoke this last week, where basically the fulfillment center has like a mini kind of web app. They can just scan it in, see the condition. I gave them some guidance in terms of like what sort of condition is should be marked as like graded as what, and then they go ahead and do that, and then they just put a label on it, they scan it, it goes back into the warehouse. It then scans into Shopify. It's then available in Shopify, and it shows up on my, like, near the buy it now button, like a little sort of like redrop icon from, and then like I've set the prices like lower basically than RRP for different grades as well. So there's a few. I mean, I haven't got that many returns, but I had the first return be scanned in and live on the store. I literally got sold in an hour and a half or something, and I'm pretty happy with that, I have to say, because I think returns
that's great.
I mean, like, returns are really hard to deal with, and understanding what to do with them. Either they just sit around, or you may try and use them for something else like photography or gifted or something. Like, there are uses obviously, but there's a lot of customers that just don't care if it's just missing some of the tags or something, right? And you can't necessarily full price, but they'll take it for near enough. And so I'm hoping this is kind of going to take away some of my return anxiety, honestly, because I also get a lot of customers who buy literally like 6 bags or something, 5 bags, and and I know they're going to return 1 or 2 of them, because they're basically just deciding what color they want or what size they want. And so it's really annoying, especially if somebody buys 5 or 6 bags and then takes all the labels off, doesn't, all the wrapping, the outer wrapping they were in, takes all that off and sends it back folded in a box, and I can't sell that, again at the same price. So I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, it's definitely like not distributable. I think it only really works for what I'm doing. But I think it's it's kind of cool what we can do now. I'm glad it's working because I think it's going to hopefully save a little bit of money in the long term.
It's very cool. You showed me off air like some previews of the workflows and everything that you've built out for it, and I also deal with the pain and agony of returns. I was in the warehouse yesterday, like looking at returns and that sort of thing, and some rejected items in our processes. Definitely, like, so we QA stuff as we ship it out often rather than when it comes in.
Okay.
That's something we might try and improve in the future, but it's like, oh, we noticed certain things here and there, and it's a certain percentage of the goods made. Like, you can't get 100% perfect, but that's something to maybe improve in the future, like down at the manufacturing level. But I love that idea. Like, do you see, for example, for like the item that's sold, is it most of the time when you get returns back that you will have them moved into the resupply or like the re-commerce solution? Or are there some that come back where you're like, oh no, just put this back on the shelf kind of thing and send it out as
Yeah,
new?
I've set 4 or 5 grades. I've got like brand new. Literally, it's got the tags on. It's got it. Literally, they just sent it back. I've got like new. I've got good, and then fair. And then I've got like literally, I don't know, the bag is literally they've ripped it or something, which hopefully doesn't happen too often. But or they've whatever it is, they've sent me back a completely different product, which hopefully doesn't happen either. But yeah, so that's like, okay, that's not going to be resold. But I basically got, yeah, three grades of like this is used, and then one which is no, this is brand new, sold as as is, and then one which is it's basically it's not being scanned. It's like we have to hold this back because this is not going to be resold, sort of thing.
Interesting. And yeah, I assume you have like pricing discounts across the board, like set up, so it's like obviously lower quality's a lot bigger of a
Yes.
discount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean fairly. I mean, I'm going to play with that over time and see what like
Yeah.
people's
I
willingness
bet you
to
could
pay,
do
I
price
guess.
testing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that could be. I feel like that's a really good situation for price testing. Interesting. That's
Yeah, I
cool.
mean, I think it works pretty well because I don't know, I often buy things used myself. Like I don't know if I'm buying
Yeah.
like especially like I don't know, just different things. Like if I'm looking at like I don't know, something like maybe a camera or something, and it's like refurbished on Amazon or something, and it's like new. I'm thinking, it's probably, it's probably fine, or I mean maybe not like different things. I often like would just be like, I don't know, I'm probably fine with the used version, like on sometimes. So I think that a lot of people, especially nowadays, are more used to that sort of thing. It's becoming more of a thing, and so yeah, I think it doesn't. I don't think it degrades the brand because I think people are thinking, well, isn't that good? They're kind of like thinking about the circularity of it and getting products back into people's hands and things. So we'll see what it is long term, but I think generally, hopefully, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is. I love it. It lines up with I think both of our brands in terms of like their ethos and mission and that sort of thing. And is more of a sustainability approach in some ways, like that can be played off around that. Like there's definitely values there. This is one of those things that's on my to-do list, I think, but probably not in the first top 10 items I need to work on every day.
Mm.
So I might try and roll it out, and I'll probably pick your brain at some point about it. That's pretty cool. Um, there's one thing I've been building out recently that I think is pretty interesting. One thing I've noticed with my brand is like being so small, everything I'm such a bottleneck, like me as a person and my time. And so I have been working on this has been an ongoing process, but basically a year or two ago I started building out SOPs for different processes. I feel like I have very low coverage across the board for workflows and that sort of thing in terms of SOP coverage, but like there are a lot. I probably have like 30 to 50 built out. And I was realizing the other day, these are in our project management software that I use for running the business, Basecamp, and they they're not the best in terms of being able to find them, so discoverability. They also aren't like agent friendly for AI, and so the other day I was like, hey, why don't I just build my own platform for this? And so I did, and now I have basically a deployed subdomain for my brand that has the SOPs that are password protected, and I'm going to migrate all of them over, and they're written in Markdown, so they're agent friendly. And my idea is like definitely to make it as easy as possible to find these, as easy as possible for my team members to update them if as needed, and then also like as we start to do more skill-based things with Claude, for example, or like managed agents. I was looking at their managed agents platform the other day. The idea would be like you can just point it at one of these SOPs in a skill or something like that, and it can do the thing. And there's so much.
Yeah.
I'm finding there's so much process inefficiencies when it comes to operations, and because we're doing so many different products and SKUs and drops and designs, and like I'm doing a lot more custom products for people, and so there's things. It's like lining up all these different variables and knocking down this checklist of items is going to be so much easier when it's SOP, and so much easier when everything just doesn't like sit on my to-do list.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty good idea, a pretty good solve for that situation.
No, that's fantastic. That resonates a lot with me because, I mean, I've got a very small team as you have, but I'm constantly like the person that gets the questions like, do you want me
Yeah.
to do this, or should I do it like this, or what, how should I do this, and things like that. And it's kind of like definitely just almost like a searchable SOP sort of wiki would be so good. I think that's so good that you've done that. And I think the like that would have been so hard to do, like so much time and effort to do before, don't you think? If I think about, developer docs and apps and things that have these type of things, like the amount of time and effort that must have gone into building those things before, and we can spin it up. I mean, it's definitely I definitely want to do that as well for sure. I think that's such a good idea.
Yeah, it would take so long to do something like that in the past. And I've done things like that in the past, and
Mm.
it was intense. And, spinning it up and building it and having it done in like an hour. And then, like, I basically had Claude to put together a script that would run into Basecamp using the CLI, pull out all of the articles, categorize them, format them, ask any questions where things aren't clear, and then ingest them into the docs on
Yeah.
the news site. And it's like that would have taken a VA hours and hours of work to do manually, and would have been so tedious and annoying. So it's like this new world that we're living in where you can do anything. It's wild. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I think, and this maybe goes into the sort of the managed agent side of things, but I think where I'm trying to think about is because what I suppose what I want also is that I'd love to build a system where, because things change, right? SOPs change, just like we're talking about with the AI guidance, like those things change from sometimes 1 month to the next, sometimes 1 year to the next. It kind of depends, but I would love to kind of build some sort of like scheduled questionnaire, sort of AI questionnaire, where it kind of just comes to me with, whether it's once a week, once a month, and says, just checking in. Has this changed at all? Has this changed at all? And it'll just remind me to just quickly type it out and say, a bit like the questions pop up on Claude, and it's just like, just type in, just say, actually, now that we've got this system set up, we don't do it this way, we do like that, and then it just updates the docs and things. And I've always wanted to like have something like that set up so that it just remembers to ask me, because that's again, like that's the other side, like the side of the coin is that this one thing is not having documentation, another thing is not remembering to update it. And not on and I think having I definitely see like nowadays it's so easy to create the documentation. I think hopefully as things evolve, it'll become easier to keep things updated as well.
Yeah, I'm finding that with all of this and like including some of the custom software I'm building, it is like things can fall between the cracks, but it's these days it's so nice because you can basically just use voice to text, and I'm using like Whisperflow is what I use for an app, and you can just do it, and you can basically like word dump into Claude and be like, here's the thing, do this. And I'm even building that out as a feature in the SOP site that I'm building, where it's like basically a voice to text feature where someone can just be like, I'm going to talk through the process that I do here, dump it all into the markdown file for the process, make it match our protocols and our standards and stuff for an SOP, and format it and everything like that to just try and like make it as easy as possible. And back years ago, you'd have to find a certain custom app for that. You'd have
Yeah.
to I know there's like Scribe or something like that was an app that people were using for
Yeah.
SOP building, but I feel like with now it's you talk through things and have the AI like format it and work it out, and it's crazy. It's so nice.
Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah.
Is there anything? What have you been up to lately? Has there been anything interesting to share?
Well, I actually wanted to speak to you about this because and maybe it'd be interesting for listeners to hear. But like, so I'm thinking about like other ways because I'm still dealing with a lot of like meta issues and how do I grow the brand potentially. I mean, it could be that it's like this for months. I could just end up having to create another meta account. I don't know, but I'm looking into other ways of growing, and I'm just I'm trying to think through, like, in terms of the whole influencer seeding thing, whether this is actually we're in a better time to be doing that. Because well, the way I was thinking about it is that, I mean, if we were to seed out, like, 100, even if it was like 50 or 100 products a month or something, like, a bit crazy. Like, I mean, I'm sure there are brands that are doing that, but I'm trying to work out whether the CAC is of sending out a product, of, of getting content, of the, like, the average views and things like that, is ends up actually being less or more than, say, the CAC on Meta. And is it easier to just put more money into inventory and use that, and almost use your product as your marketing tool, in the sense that, like, you're getting it in people's hands, I suppose, so to speak, and obviously those, you're choosing people they're in your audience segment, that have, that are posting content, that have audiences, but at the same time, like, using that as a tool, as opposed to spending, like, daily on Meta, or at least as much daily on Meta. And I'm trying to figure out whether it sounds better than it is, and actually it's a nightmare, or whether with AI and things as well, whether that kind of, at least that initial outreach side of things, can be managed to a point where, actually just communicating with 50 or 100 influencers a month is actually not that hard. And as long as it's being passed through to a 3PL, or to your warehouse, or wherever, however you're filling, maybe it's not as hard as it used to be. And actually, is it easier to do something like that nowadays? And then secondly, is it more financially viable? I don't know. I'm just trying to think about whether that's like, or whether actually nowadays that type of stuff just doesn't really work. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it sucks to be in the Facebook jail situation with the unknowns and like just the ridiculous behavior by them and unwillingness to help. But it is interesting to like try and force you to think outside the box when it comes to being less reliant on Facebook ads. And I can't imagine, that's definitely my main channel, and I can't imagine having to be forced in that situation. But I think you're right to like, I know you've looked at Google Ads, and I think you remember you saying that they were working fairly well. And I think influencer content creator seeding is a realm that could possibly, I think it's one of those things that you don't know until you test it. And I think it does work for a lot of people, and it is a numbers game. You send out 100 things, you get like a couple responses back or something, or like a dozen, or ideally a lot more than that. But I think that the number game is what it is, and it's a numbers play, and the percentages are pretty low from what I've heard and read about. I think you're right that AI would help to make, because it is such a manual process sending out these like PR gift boxes and that sort of thing. And in the past, it would have been so tedious to build out spreadsheets or whatever for that and work through them and everything like that. But I think you're right. Like, you could probably spin up an app for this, a web app, like a local just website where you can track. It could almost, I wonder how much it can do, because I know that the APIs are pretty locked down. I wonder how much it could do for research to find those people. But I think the management of it, the tracking of it, like, I've sort of tried to do it on a very, very small scale of like a dozen stuff, to like dozen boxes or orders or whatever to send out, dozen people that we targeted. I think that's not the way to go, because you really have to go big with like 50. You have to hit like that minimum amount where the percentages work, where it's like whatever 5 or 10% activation. But it is interesting, because it's like, yeah, will that be more effective and efficient in terms of looking at the cost of acquisition? I don't know. I'm curious, like, if you start to dig into that and try it out, see how it plays out.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is not necessarily sending it out and just hoping, because that scares me a little bit. I think, like, I know that brands that do that, and I think brands that do that tend to be very kind of small products that are easy to ship out, that kind of, hopefully their shipping costs aren't too high. I was thinking about getting to a point where you've almost got, it's just gifted product in exchange for content, and that's the agreement with, say, a micro influencer, someone who's got 5,000 followers, maybe 10,000 followers, 15,000 followers, something like that. And you're not, like, they're at a stage where they have an audience to an extent, but they're also not necessarily going to do it for paid. And this is where I might be being a bit naive, because it might be that even at that level they do want some form of compensation. I don't know, but I was thinking like something like that. And then if you're reaching out to enough, then you're sending out 100, say 100, shipments where you know that at least 100 of those people have agreed. Whether they all actually end up posting is another matter. Maybe 70% of those people do, but I suppose it's a higher number because they've already agreed. But you're right, the API stuff is where I've been looking into this recently. Seems like a really hard part. Is like, say, all these apps out there, the influencer management apps. Really, what they're selling is their API to be able to get like to pull through all those influencers, and it's up and having one that's updated as well, because it's pointless sending emails out to people who that email longer is no longer valid or whatever. So that's what I'm struggling with a lot, is that these apps are very expensive. I mean, hundreds and hundreds a month, pretty much all of them. And all you really want is the discoverability part of it, because searching people through Instagram one by one is pretty long, lengthy process, and manually adding that to a spreadsheet is a long, lengthy process. Whereas these apps, what they have is like a one click, you can see their following, you can see their username, you can see their email, send them an email, sort of thing. So yeah, that's the difficulty, I guess.
Yeah, in my experience, I feel like we're past the point where free gifting works for the most part. At least this is specific to my niche, and I think every niche is different. But I do feel like the travel niche kind of thing that you probably would lean into, has gotten past the point of free gifting working, essentially. Like, I feel like there would be people out there, but for the vast majority of the content creators and influencers, they're like, at least the ones that I've reached out to in my niche, which also feels like it's past that saturation point, they're usually like, $600 to post to my profile and all this ridiculousness. And it's like, like, you know how many products we have to sell to make 600 back or whatever? Like, it's like the break even is tricky. But I think you're right that like the research part is the still intensive part. And like, I think I've heard people that have used VAs for this, where they're like, here's our target market. Here's some example influencers or content creators that follow the brand or whatever. Like, find 100 people that are similar to this and put it into the spreadsheet or whatever. And that would give you a good jumping off point. And then, I mean, ideally they would find the emails too in the profiles and add them to the spreadsheet or whatnot. But I think you could spin up an app for that, where they add them into the database or whatever, and then you try and automate the rest of the process. And I think that's what I would try and lean into and see what the next steps would be, and like that could, like, hopefully that would work. Is my thought.
Yeah, I've definitely have to try that. I think I'm going to try with like a smaller bulk amount and just see kind of if I can even get enough people who are like qualified people who I have a good chance of promoting the product well, like whether they even will take it on, just gifted product. I think because our products are a little bit more expensive, it might be that it's enough where a micro influencer is enough of a deal for them. It may not be, I don't know. But yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about you? I think you had Earth Week, right? Like a sale going on through Earth Week, is that right?
Yeah, they moved. So I usually run a sale during National Park Week, which they moved to like June or July, and it lines up right with Earth Day. And so I was like, you know what, we're making an Earth Week. And so I think other people have done the same thing, call it Earth Week. So I ran a sale, and am running the sale, and it's like, it'll be over by the time this airs. This is brand specific, like very niche specific, but I'm always surprised at how price elastic some of the goods are that I have. And so like, if I offer a really good deal, people snatch up on it quite a bit. And, I think there's a bunch of nuance to that, and there's a bunch of details behind the scenes, and some of it like makes me a little sad inside. It's like, oh man, are we really just looking for discounts here? But I was going to launch a mystery box sale, which does really, really well, but I just like, there was so much to line up beforehand, and I was launching the sale like Friday night before, doing all the things like the day before I was launching. Classic small ecom brand. But it's been working pretty well so far, and will end soon. Just always surprised by people that want deals, but people love deals.
Yeah. And is that still going on? Is it ended now?
No, I ran it for 7 days. It's going on right now, so it'll end on Saturday again, or maybe Sunday, I can't remember. But yeah, it's a full week. I wanted to do a little bit longer so that I could I'm running Facebook ads on it, and like seeing crazy returns. I actually I just threw together an ugly ad for it, which was actually more work than it would look like it was to make it look like an ugly ad. And I'm pulling up numbers. Doing above 2 ROAS. Wait, that's not this week. Doing above 4 ROAS.
Wow.
So I'll take that. Cost per acquisition $20. On an AOV of $80. So like pretty good numbers. And so in the past when I've done weekend sales or shorter term sales, I've also ran ads on it and get like decent returns, but to like maximize the return on ad spend, I wanted to run it a little bit longer, and it's still doing pretty strong. I have 2 ads. The ugly ad is doing way better than the pretty ad with like actual products in it. That's so funny.
No,
Interesting.
it just shows as well. Like I suppose we were talking about before, like in a previous episode, about offers having such an impact in general on
Oh
like
yeah.
acquisition. I think just acquisition, not even just meta ads. I just think like first customer acquisition, it just has a big impact. And it's like, how do you leverage that without, you know, driving yourself down on price? And I think it's a really hard balance, because I think there are a lot of brands that just, that kind of really kind of on knife edge with that, and it's you can do really well out of it, and it can also, it's also really tough to kind of understand what the impact is long term as well, because I mean, yeah, it's just hard.
It's definitely hard. I want to do a lot more offer testing. I think you're right. Like when we did talk about that at length last time, where it's like offers are so crucial, and finding the right offer that really works, you can like really push the gas
Yeah,
pedal down on that and scale that. And I've seen some other brands that have obviously like they have this certain offer that they do over and over again on all sorts of different product categories for them, and it clearly works very well. I would assume they wouldn't do it, and that's on my list of like different things to test. There's always things to test, and that's pretty high up there. I think you find that and you can dial it in and just kind of go and go, because I think unless you have a really really desirable product or brand, you can do Facebook ads or whatever it is on that and have some conversions. But the next step up is you know the deal, like buy 2 get 2 free or whatever it is, buy 2 get 1 free,
yeah,
or a certain percentage off, or a gift with purchase, like all these different things. There's a lot of different options to go with, and it's pretty interesting.
yeah. I wanted to ask you about SMS as well, because I know you did some stuff with like some analysis on PostScript and stuff. I'm generally interested just because I actually don't do a whole lot of SMS, and I really only time I do SMS probably is like around uh Black Friday, I think. Maybe
Wow.
one other time in the year. And I probably should do more of it. I just haven't worked out the best way to use it, and like what cadence, and like I find that hard. Even like I know some brands integrating SMS within their flows as well. I don't know if you're doing that. Like I think all my flows are just email flows, to be honest. I haven't, apart from maybe like tracking updates in SMS and things like that, which I know customers generally like. But yeah, I'm keen to hear about it.
Yeah, I so the high level is like I've been using SMS for years. I use PostScript, so it's not necessarily built into my Klaviyo flows directly. Got a bunch of different flows set up, kind of like the standards. I probably have 10 different flows set up, so like the standards plus a little bit more. And then I often send out campaigns, and I have a certain. I think it's a really cool marketing idea where it's like the mountain is out, and I send out a text which is super on brand, and I try and send out like a really good offer deal. And I've been sending out dozens of those and haven't found the great unlock for that yet, but that's still work in progress. But I, as I like analyze costs and stuff for the brand, I noticed the PostScript fees can like it adds up. Like I don't know, the costs are a couple hundred plus at least every month. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to dig in and be like, is this ROI here? Is this worth it? In the past, when I send out campaigns, it's fairly frequent, maybe a couple a month. It'll be for big restocks, or it'll be for sales, or it'll be for new product drops. So I basically exported. I went to Claude and was like, "Hey, let's analyze this." Grabbed all the exports that it wanted and then dumped them in. And so it did some interesting analysis, and basically like the ROI is there. It's a good profitable channel for me. And the interesting takeaway was that just plain text beats MMS for me. So like MMS would be with an emoji and an image, but the what did it say? Yeah, so I'm looking at like the stats, and it was the campaigns with images, which I've always thought would be helpful for people to visualize what they want to click on. It's like, oh yeah, what is the Ranger t-shirt? I don't know what that is. Like, I want to see it. Show me what it is.
Yeah.
It just seems like it makes sense for apparel. But those campaigns averaged a 4x ROAS or ROI versus 15 for SMS only. That was kind of
Mm.
like the big takeaway was like, okay, more SMS, which is way cheaper. So that's great win, and less MMS, and save those for like the big sales maybe, or not even sales because those are self-explanatory, but it's like big new
Yeah.
product drops should be MMS probably, and limit it to that. And I still need to analyze a lot of the workflows to see, or does the amount of sending that we're doing on those, is that worth it? I think there was several campaigns that it called out that weren't doing that well, or
Okay.
workflows that it called out that weren't doing that well that I need to dig into. Sometimes it's kind of tricky because the click-through rate and the revenue from a workflow might not necessarily be the goal. Like you mentioned, sending out a text when for a shipping delivery or notification or that sort of thing. Yeah, people do love that, and I think I've got that set up, but it's like the revenue from that is very, very minimal, of course, because it's not a revenue generating type text,
Yeah.
but it's helpful. And so, but it is like SMS is tricky because every send costs you money versus email
Yeah.
where it's like way, 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 way cheaper. So that was some of the analysis I did, and I would need to dig into it a little bit more and pull out some more results from it. It's sitting in one of my open tabs, to work through it all. But those are like the big takeaways I think that could be useful for people.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's a bit like email, like plain text, isn't it? A little bit to an extent. Plain text can often do
Yeah,
pretty well, and it's kind of just cuts through the noise, isn't like overbearing. I think with SMS, that's especially relevant because I think people can get annoyed with SMS. So with the less they feel like a message is looks like it's in their face, I think the better. Um, and yeah, I think that's really. I've got to try it for sure. I also wanted to ask you about. I'm thinking about getting back into like posts, like direct mail, basically. I don't know. I've seen a lot of brands started up again, and I've been thinking about it a lot. And I've seen some posts about people like where they've got segments in Klaviyo where they're kind of no longer really generating revenue, and they're kind of almost like elapsed, and they send them like a direct mail, and it does extremely well. And I think about like I was just visiting my parents the other day, and I go into the kitchen, and my mum's got like these direct mail things everywhere from different brands that are sending her like Bowden and clothes and things. So it's I just find it like hilarious, and like but they sit there for quite a while. And I was thinking about it when I saw it. I was thinking, even if she like just the real estate it has there sitting there in our kitchen for
yeah,
several days before anyone gets rid of it, it's got to be worth something. So I don't know. It's like I've been looking into it. I'm thinking about trying it out a little bit and seeing whether I think it's the offer is probably quite important as well with direct mail and making
yeah.
some actually want to use it. But yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I have looked into that quite a bit. I was gonna try and find, where was it? So I like that idea of like separating from the noise. It's not a digital solution at all, so you're like really being a lot different. And you're right about offer being really important. Post Pilot is like the big
yeah,
player in that world, and they're super expensive. If like the ROIs, I feel like it's interesting because the ROI seems like it's very, very high, but it's also pretty darn expensive. So it really has to the numbers have to be there, like the volumes have to be there. And I've talked with a platform that's kind of like the new player in town that's cheaper than Post Pilot, and I've talked with them every, I don't know, 6 months or so, and basically like check in and like, hey, what do my stats look like volume wise? Does it make sense to make it? Is the ROI there? Like you have to meet a certain threshold of sends and abandoned customers to make it really worth it. And every time
okay,
I've checked in with them, they're kind of like, nah, you're not quite there yet. Like, we don't want to waste your money, which is, they're really nice and honest. I love that.
oh wow,
But you really have to be like at a certain order threshold, I think, to make it worth it. I don't remember their name off the top of my
I'm
head.
I'm looking at one called Stamp, STANNP, which is a different.
I don't,
I've used
yeah.
Postpile in the past, but you're right, their prices have gone up a lot. Um,
I like the idea a lot. What was the platform? I'll find it and send it to you afterwards, basically. But I think I'd recommend checking out with them.
yeah,
Direct mail, mailing. Anyways, Yeah, it's an interesting idea, but I do think, and it's sort of like it's like a sexy play, I guess, in ecom.
Mm.
You know, it's like, oh, we're sending out direct mail. This is way more
Yeah,
fun or interesting than emails or
yeah.
SMS. But it is the numbers. The numbers. It's always about the numbers. Do
Yeah,
they
the
work?
difficult thing I dabbled with it in the past, and I think the difficult thing is there's the continual stuff like flow, like a bit like equivalent of email flows, like abandoned cart and things like that. But there's
Yep.
also the equivalent of just bulk sends. So if you're doing a sale, send out to everyone on your list or certain amount of people. But the difficult thing is deciding who to send to, because if you just send to everybody on your list, it's going to be very expensive. And then deciding
Yeah.
who to send it to is really difficult because if you send it to your very engaged list, it's like, well, how much of those would have converted with an email about that offer anyway? Or how if I'm sending an email with direct mail, how much of it is actually coming from direct mail versus email?
Yeah.
So it's hard to like that's something I found in the past. Like if you just sent to your entire list, it's probably going to be very expensive, and probably not the smartest way to do it. So I think that's why they've started bringing like the opportunity to send out like abandoned cart mail and stuff like that, which is useful. But I also think that there's but the idea of bulk sending it is kind of what traditionally direct mail was for, and so I feel like that's uh that's something I want to try, kind of re-engage people who have like signed up to an email list and never bought and things like that, and seeing whether you can kind of squeeze more out there. But yeah, I'll have to report back if I do try it.
Yeah. Please do. I think that the definitely the play to go with is the unengaged customer, the lapsed customer, the
Yeah,
abandoned kind of thing, and it should be like months later, right? Like you want to capture them as soon as possible with the less expensive options like email or SMS. But then if months go by and they're not back, that's where the direct mail could like reactivate them essentially. So I do think that there's viability there. It definitely seems like a really interesting and cool channel, but just not quite. You know, you have to be the numbers have to work basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like so many things.
Yeah, so many things. Everything's so expensive. All these costs, they always add up.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's most of what I've got. Did you have anything? We're getting kind of close to the end of time. Anything else before we wrap?
No, good for me. Good for me, I think. That was a fun episode.
Cool. Yeah. Leave us a review. Give us your 5-10 star review. Let us know what we should talk about next time if you want. And we'll catch you around.
See you.